There's also photographs of al-Sharif with the slain Hamas leader Sinwar. But the BBC's understanding is that he worked for the Hamas media office before the current conflict began and had been sharply critical of Hamas more recently. It should also be noted that Hamas is the biggest employer in Gaza. To this day, it pays the salaries of tens of thousands of people, including civil servants, as the de facto government. Now, there is evidence that al-Sharif was a former Hamas employee and at some point a supporter. But does the evidence meet the very high bar for somehow justifying a targeted attack on journalists in a conflict which independent journalists have simply not been allowed to see? Okay, but just to be specific about Anas al-Sharif, what is indisputable is that he clearly had a relationship with Hamas stretching back a number of years. I presume you've done your own investigating into this. It wasn't the first time he'd been accused of this. He was accused of this while he was still alive last year. So what is your understanding of what his relationship was to Hamas in terms of employment or support or otherwise?
Piers, you have several photos hugging Cristiano Ronaldo. It doesn't make you a Manchester United fan. President Donald Trump has a number of photos with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not sure if he is a human trafficker or a child molester. The fact that somebody has pictures, in fact, Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has met Khalid Mish'al, the head of the Hamas, 4 times during the period that Anas al-Sharif met Hamas leaders. The fact that journalists take pictures with people means nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, but that was my question.
If that is the evidence that we're meant to go by...
No, but Jamal, well, that's not the only evidence, as you know. And listen, I just want to try and get to the facts here. And it's difficult because a lot of misinformation is being deliberately put out on social media to smear Anas al-Sharif. I didn't know him. You, I presume, did know him. And it appears, and we're going to go to our other guest in a moment who has a lot of damning allegations to make, which I will then come back to you about. But from your understanding, is it true that he was working prior to October the 7th in the media department for Hamas? In other words, was employed by Hamas, or is that not true?
There is no evidence whatsoever that has been independently verified by any credible organization that gives that whatsoever.
Okay, but the discussion's taking place, as you know, because the IDF identified Anas al-Sharif as a Hamas commander, and they have used that as the justification for directly targeting him. Now, before I go to JOTAM, just to be clear, if he had been a Hamas commander, in other words, involved in Hamas, in combative operations, would you accept he would have been a legitimate target? It's a hypothetical, but would you accept that if in that context he had been a Hamas commander and that was established as a fact, would you accept that it was a legitimate strike?
Piers, if you don't mind, because if we go into hypotheticals, it's never ending. Al Jazeera abides by Ofcom. It is a multi-award-winning institution that has been acknowledged for its brave journalism, its award-winning journalism, be it the RTS awards that we've won on numerous occasions, Emmys, Peabodys, and so forth. Anas al-Sharif is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who risked his life in the face of the most barbaric military ever to be seen in modern history over the past 22 months. What we should be discussing and what people should be looking at is how on earth we have allowed for ourselves to normalize a discussion around the targeted assassination of a 28-year-old father of 2 who all he did was stand in front of a camera and tell people what was going on. The basis and the premise of journalism is to speak truth to power, is to report that which those in power do not want reporting. Right now, those in power have made us believe that the premise of reporting is to take for granted what they said in some sort of consciously racist way, because his name is ANAS al-Sharif and not John Smith, that there is some sort of possible, plausible justification for murdering him in cold blood in the evening in a flimsy hospital tent outside a burnt-out hospital. And that is what the public of the world knows now, even though the media is still slow to catch up, that this is a disgraceful lie that nobody is willing to stand for ever again.
Okay. Let me come to JOTAM CONFINO. Thank you for your patience. You're a Middle East correspondent. You've done a lot of research into this, and you believe you have damning evidence to support the IDF claim, I understand, that ANAS al-Sharif was a Hamas combatant, terrorist, whatever people want to call him. What is your evidence for this? And I will then go to Jamal to respond.
First of all, I don't have damning evidence that he was a Hamas member. That's also not what I tweeted. All I did was I tried to explain to the world that the way that he was glorified by other journalists as some sort of a hero who spoke truth to power is nothing but a lie, because I plowed through his Telegram account just to see which kind of person he actually was. And Piers, I've carefully put out all of the documentation, all of the screenshots of everything on Twitter for everyone to see. It is without a doubt a person who not only supported Hamas outright, he had friends who were Hamas combatants who he mourned when they were killed. He commemorated slain Islamic Jihad leader Abu Baha, who was killed in 2019. He praised October the 7th as it was happening. He praised a terror attack that killed 7 Jews outside a synagogue in 2023. He called it heroic. He called it heroic when a Palestinian terrorist went into Tel Aviv and killed 3 people. So I'm not here to say that ANAS was a Hamas member, because I'm still going through the evidence and I'm waiting for more evidence from the IDF. But what I will say is that I will not put myself in the same category as this guy who openly praised terrorists and who openly supported Hamas, because that's not what a journalist does. It's quite the opposite of what a journalist should be doing.
As you were talking earlier, we were showing a lot of the stuff that you have posted, which appears to come from ANAS al-Sharif's Telegram account. There are questions about the veracity of a lot of that stuff that's been whizzing around the internet. How convinced are you that what you posted is accurate? And how do you know?
Look, it's his Telegram account with more than 140,000 followers. He opened the account back in 2017. He posted vigorously for years. It is his account. It is his reporting. I have no doubt about it. But look, I don't understand how a colleague of his can defend him when he openly supported Hamas. And if you don't believe the screenshots that I put out, there are many more. You know, you don't hang out with mass murderers. You know, you don't post pictures where you're smiling with Osama bin Laden. The only reason why we accept this is because the world has gone into a mass psychosis and thrown journalistic integrity out the window when it comes to Israel and Hamas. We're willing to glorify a guy like ANAS, who's openly a Hamas reporter, and to call him a great journalist when he's not. And by the way, Jamal, I went through your Twitter just to see what kind of person you are. You have called Israel cancer. If I told the world that Palestine was cancer, do you know what would happen if I did that? I would be canceled. I would be fired from every single outlet that I work for within an hour. For some reason, you get away with it because you work for Al Jazeera. I also went through what you did on October 7th. You put up a screenshot or you commented on...
I get away with it. I get away with it. I get away with it because it's factual. Palestine has not bombed 7 countries.
It's factual that Israel is cancer.
Few months.
Great,
it has not massacred.
It has not massacred.
It has not massacred over 50,000 people. It does not have the same bloody record that Israel has in terms of murdering doctors, in terms of murdering children, in terms of murdering the elderly.
Jamal,
so of course, when you look at an entity that is not,
Jamal,
there's not. That's a fact.
Jamal, hang on. All right, I want to ask JOTAM. You mentioned October the 7th as something that Jamal posted that day. Just say what that is. Then I have a question for Jamal about October the 7th.
Thank you, Piers. Thanks for letting me talk, because Jamal, you've spoken a lot, and please give me time to just explain what it is. You know, if you wanted to, you could have deleted all of these things from your Twitter, but you didn't. On October the 7th, you posted a video of Shiri and Ariel and Kfir Bibas, who were kidnapped by terrorists in the morning. And I'm quoting you here, I'm reading your tweet. Palestinian fighters instruct that this settler, that is Shiri Bibas, a civilian woman, and her children are protected. Noteworthy that there have been no reports of any children being targeted despite fighters controlling several illegal settlements. Not only are you spreading the most blatant fake news that you can on a day where an ongoing actual genocide is taking place about children not being killed. I've seen videos of Hamas members executing children. And you're saying, you're calling this woman a settler. She lives in Israel proper. She's not from the West Bank. And you're somehow excusing what this person is doing. Then there's another tweet where you're seeing the masked Hamas terrorist inside a bedroom of a civilian, and you're saying a Hamas fighter filmed inside an illegal Israeli settlement while an elderly settler lays in bed seemingly unharmed. Are you deranged, or are you just depraved and spreading the most vile Hamas propaganda I can think of? I think both. And I'm sickened to have people putting you and me in the same category. You're not a journalist, you're a Hamas propagandist, and apparently you're also okay with people being slaughtered on October the 7th.
I'll ask you, Jamal, to respond. Jamal, I'll ask you to respond to that.
Oh, sorry, go.
Well, no, my question would be a question I asked a lot of guests in the first few months after what happened on October the 7th on the pro-Palestinian side, which is a very simple one, which is, do you personally, Jamal, condemn what Hamas did on that day?
Piers, let me respond to what JOTAM said first, if you don't mind, because what he's done was he's quoted what has been written. What was written is a very journalistic approach to describe factually in real time what was being posted as a video. So when you have a video of a fighter, he is a fighter with an elderly person in bed, and that elderly person is seemingly unharmed, right? That is a factual description of what the video shows. When the videos that had appeared throughout that time until the time of posting do not show any children being harmed, and you say that there are no children being harmed, that is a factual description of what is happening. Journalism 101 is to describe factually based on what you can verify at the time.
But did you post any videos showing people being harmed?
What's at all.
No, but did you show? Did you post it? No, but Jamal, did you post any? Jamal,
I actually don't know.
Let me ask you a question.
Don't know.
Did you?
Yeah.
But surely you'd remember if you posted any videos of people actually being harmed, because Hamas were gleefully reposting their own footage of them murdering and torturing and shooting and attacking people.
Piers, I genuinely do not remember every tweet that I've tweeted, and my tweets are public, people can see them, there's nothing to worry about. And to be honest, the thing is, there is a very clear derailment here of a discussion about the brazen assassination of not one, not two, but 7 journalists by the Israeli military in a civilian area, in a hospital, to come and talk about my own personal tweets. I'm more than happy to come after on another episode and discuss all of those. There's nothing to hide there,
okay.
And that's irrelevant to what I'm talking about here.
All right, Jamal, we can talk about more than one thing at once, and they're all interlinked. So in answer to my question, do you personally condemn what Hamas did that day? This is not a discussion at all that I'm going to get into, Piers. Why? Because I'm here to represent
a very straightforward question. To talk about the murder.
You've been very condemnatory.
Can I talk?
But Jamal,
yes.
Jamal, hang on, please. Jamal, you've been very, very condemnatory, and I've allowed you to talk at length in your most condemnatory way about Israel and the IDF. And you're perfectly entitled to that opinion. But I'm also perfectly entitled in the question of balance. You talk about truth to power and being fair as a journalist. I don't think it's unfair to simply ask you, if you as an Al Jazeera representative, whether you condemn the terrorist attack on October the 7th, because I thought that it was one of the most despicable things that I've ever witnessed as a journalist.
Now,
in
that's your
my
opinion,
entire
and you're
life.
more than
But what is your opinion?
And you are more than welcome. I'm going to tell you now, if you don't mind, that is your opinion, you're more than welcome to it, right? If Hamas is to kill or target or arrest I'm speaking now as a journalist and as my capacity within Al Jazeera, if they were to attack or kill or harm any journalist, I will condemn them instantly within the capacity that I'm talking to you now. If you are asking me, let me borrow the words
civilians?
of the great Muhammad Ali boxer. Let me borrow the words of Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, when he was trying to be conscripted to fight in Vietnam, told you what? He said, no Viet Cong called me, and no Viet Cong tried to enslave his people. I'm telling you now as a journalist, Hamas did not kill my people as journalists, my colleagues. They did not detain. So when you're telling me you've been very condemnatory, I'm being very condemnatory of an Israeli military that has killed more than a dozen of my own colleagues within Al Jazeera alone, that has destroyed our offices. And this is what we're talking about.
Yes. Yes, we're talking about actually a number of things.
Can I respond, please?
Well, one second, Yotam. I'm just going to give you one more chance, Jamal, because you've avoided the question, and you may have your own reasons for doing that. But you talked very strongly against the IDF and Israel and what they have done, and I think it is entirely reasonable for me to just ask you one more time. You don't have to answer, but it'd be very telling if you don't, in my estimation. Do you condemn the slaughter of so many civilians and the kidnap of so many civilians on October the 7th?
I condemn the slaughter of any civilian anywhere in the world. It's as simple as that. And that is my personal thing. I do not believe a single civilian, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their political belief, any civilian anywhere in the world should be killed. And that is a consistent belief that I have always had as a human being that believes in the sanctity of human life, and that applies to regardless of who the perpetrator is. There is no justification for the deliberate killing of any civilian, regardless of their gender, their age, their skin color, their religion, whatever their beliefs may be.
Okay, thank you. I got a clear answer there. Let's
now,
go back
what
to
I would
you,
like
Yotam.
to hear, if that's the case, Mr. Jotam,
hang on,
20 minutes straight.
Listen,
I will
conduct the interview. I will conduct the interview, if you don't mind, Jamal. Let me come back to Yotam. Yotam.
Go ahead.
Listen, if I had just done the same interview as Jamal had done, I would have committed career suicide. But Jamal gets away with it. No one gives a shit because he works for Al Jazeera. And nobody cares because he can quite literally sit here and escape and avoid condemning Hamas, lie about what happened on October 7th, lie, and you'll get away with it. If I said anything even remotely close to what he did, but like the reverse, done. You would never see me in the media again because we hold my kind to a different standard than we hold people like Jamal, a guy who works for a network who's funded by Qatar, a state that employs modern-day slavery, that bans homosexuality, that deliberately oppresses women. That kind of person, by the way, who's also having Hamas leadership in that country, he sits here and lectures us on journalism. Hamas and Al Jazeera are the same thing. You won't find an Al Jazeera journalist inside Gaza who covers demonstrations against Hamas, Hamas executing civilians, Hamas using hospitals, schools for military purposes. You won't find it because you know what will happen? They'll kill them. There's actually a good Palestinian journalist who's right now fearing for his life because he's one of the few who dared go up against Hamas inside Gaza. And his name is Omar Abu, and I'm texting with him. He is scared to death because Hamas have been after him because he actually does his job, unlike ANAS and unlike Jamal, who are mouthpieces of Hamas, and it's sickening to sit here and listen to it.
But Yotam, just to be clear, do you accept, because the BBC says that there's evidence that ANAS al-Sharif was a Hamas commander is insufficient, as do many other bodies. Many have attacked this around the world in the journalism community, as you know. Do you accept that if hard evidence does not emerge that ANAS al-Sharif was indeed an active Hamas commander, then what happened in the direct targeting of him and his journalist colleagues from Al Jazeera and those working with them was a war crime?
Yes, absolutely, Piers. I'm not here to justify the killing of journalists. That is not what I'm doing. That's what people misunderstand. This is a twofold discussion. There's A, do we have evidence that he was a Hamas member? I'm still plowing through it, trying to figure it out. B, was he actually a journalist? And I think we need to have this discussion, because today you can put on a press vest and you can go and hang out with the Hamas people, spout their propaganda, glorify terror, and then go out and report again. In my book, that's not journalism. And I want to ask you, Piers, back when you were editor-in-chief of the Daily Mirror, would you have employed somebody who applauded 9/11, hung out with Osama bin Laden, and then went out and did coverage for you on the ground?